leprosy, right? When people had leprosy, the main thing, the reason why leopards would be destroyed was not from the disease itself, it's because they couldn't feel no pain. So their foot would be broken or hurt. They would literally walk their foot off because they could not feel the pain. And a lot of times I think we as pastors, we as black men, we as males, we stress ourselves out. The reason why we have high blood pressure more, the reason why we die more, because we suck up the pain.
There is another part that happens in our particular cultures that sometimes has been exacerbated by the issues and the trauma of slavery that has caused for men to have to bear the brunt of trauma. And so our expression of masculinity has been sometimes abrasive without having adequate conversations as to the reason why these behaviors exist.
Generation Alpha, millennials, they don't know what it's like to be a man. What does it mean to be a man in society? And I worry about that.
Hey, my dude over here, Theology on Tap with Dr. Antipas Harris. You know he's a man, he's a visionary behind the scenes. And I'm Willard Maxwell, and we have our dear friend over here, man. Oh, man, thank you, man. This man saved my life, man. Wow. For real, when I was a principal, Dr. Patrick Winfield, man. Dude, I just appreciate you. I'm gonna say this one more time, I know it's already on there. This guy, I flew from Atlanta all the way here when I was a principal at New Birth because I knew Bishop Long did everything T.D. Jakes did. And he was trying to convert our private school into a charter school, but that's illegal in Georgia. And I said, you know what? I bet you the Potter's House used to be a private school. He trying to do what Jakes do, because he'll do whatever Jakes do without even thinking about it. I get a flight. I fly from Atlanta here to meet with him, and somebody said, you have an appointment? I said, no, I ain't even know the dude's name. I just flew up to the damn school. So I get there, he meets with me, man. He tells me all the plans and walks me through everything. So when I went home, I was equipped to tell them why we could not do what it is you're trying to do. It's illegal in Georgia. Jakes did it because it's legal there, and it was easier for them, which would have been better if we could do that. That would have been easier. But at the end of the day, it's illegal, and I'm not trying to lose I'm the only one that was certified. You know, I ain't want to lose my teaching certificate, administrator certificate, because if I'm a part of it, then I could get caught up in the scandal of it all. That's right. By doing something like that. And I didn't want to be going up before the governing board of our teacher certificate, right, the state, and be losing my certificate, man. But he gave me so much wisdom, man. When I tell you, I was like, man, I'm forever grateful to this guy. So when you said you called him, I said, that's my dude. I got his number. I'm not good with calling people. I need to do better. I promise I'm going to call. If your number the same, now I'm going to get the right number. Now, bro. It changed. I had to say, you the pastor now. Yeah. You can't have the same people, man. So hopefully you let me shift with you, man, because I'm like, this is just awesome that you here, man. But anyway, that's it, man. But Dr.
Pastor Patrick has been such a, I was telling someone that a statesman is not based on age. It's not based on title. It's really based on the ability to have the tenacity to stay steady, even when the ship is reeling and rolling, right? So it's being able to go through adversity, manage change, stabilize people, be able to handle the winds of vicissitudes. And when I see Pastor Patrick, I see a man who is a statesman, because he has a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge, and he keeps it 100, and he also keeps it very low profile, and the wisdom he has and the knowledge he has is quite amazing. So that's why I wanted him to come on the show. I wanted to hear what is on your heart these days. That's an open question. I mean, you're an educator, you're a pastor, you are a leader, you're a Bible student, a Bible teacher. But when I speak of education, I'm talking about K-12 education. You're an expert in all of that. And I just wanted to see, where's your heart these days? What does the Lord put on your heart?
Wow. Oh, man, if you would have gave me that question before I got here, I probably would have had a faster answer. Because there's a multiplicity of things that's on my heart.
Well, I figured that.
First and foremost, my family. My baby boy is about to graduate high school. Mm-hmm. And he's trying to play basketball on the next level. He's had to sit out for 4 months last summer, so we couldn't train the way that we wanted to because he had issues with his heart. Mm. And students or basketball players at his age were dying for the month. So the emotional roller coaster that he went on. Long story short, by the time we got to October, because that was in June, the college was looking at him, and then by the time we got to October, when the season actually started, an electrophysiologist actually gave him the green light to play again. But then he had to go through a whole month of getting his mind right.
Yeah,
like he was told that it's possible that you could be playing, and then if your head gets heavy, then you flatline. It's possible that they need to have a defibrillator there just in case your heart needs to. There's a whole lot of stuff. You may never play again. And I was like, really? And I told the cardiologist. I said, fine, tell us the truth.
Yes.
Let you feel it.
But don't let him hear it.
Yeah.
Because psychologically, it is hard for a young man to come back from that.
Yeah.
Because it's playing on in the back of your head.
Right.
So it took him about a month to get his head right and to get his legs up under him. Mm-hmm. But now he's good. He's in a great place. But now I'm processing the fact that we are in an age and stage of life where everybody in the house is going through transition. And so, me and my wife are in our early 50s. We're thinking, okay, legacy. What does that look like? That's another conversation. He's thinking play on the next level, but the path that he wants to choose is a non-traditional path. And the way college athletics is right now, it is just different than what it was when we were going to school. And so that's a whole lot of unknowns. My middle boy is next semester he'll be in his third year, which means that he needs to start thinking about both graduation and how the career is going to get situated. I got a grandson, so family. That's first and foremost. The next thing is what is, and Pastor Sarah talked about it last night, which was absolutely phenomenal, about intersectionality. That in this age and stage of my life, I'm trying to figure out the intersectionality, the purpose for which God has placed me both in the education and in the church. There's some things about the church, especially how we are engaging culture, that bothers me. There's something about new leadership that's young and inexperienced, but plenty of zeal, which I admire the zeal. But without proper training, you find yourself in precarious situations, and you have no theological substratum to be able to deal with a certain situation or situations that may be happening in culture. I think it's a bad look for the church. And because we never sit down and have conversations privately about this so that we can kind of land on something to say, everybody is in their own lane, just kind of saying what they want to say and say what they feel. And the church looks very schizophrenic. And that's church. And so education has changed and shifted so much that, trying to find a firm footing in it, may not be doable right now, which means that you've got to be able to do education like surfers surf a wave.
Yeah.
Maybe the only firm footing that you'll find is something that you create, but still you've got to ride the uncertainty of whatever waves are coming in. And to a certain degree, I feel like I need to be retrained or reacclimated to what that is, so I can get a feeling for it again. What we're doing in FISM helps us to be able to scratch the itch of training the next generation of elders and ministers. And what I feel like they should be learning right up through here. How should they be prepared for the world that we have to engage with?
And that's Potter's House School of Ministry.
Potter's House School of Ministry.
Yeah.
And then, JDS affords us the opportunity to engage in an academic level of study of the Word and church history and theology and things of that nature. So, I get an opportunity to do that. I think right now I just feel honored to be able to have enough experience and knowledge to be able to pour into other people and to help and to walk with people in whatever age and stage of life that they're in. So it's a lot.
Yeah. That's a lot of intersection going on there, right? I really, all of that was amazing. I love how you started with family. I think family is so crucial. And I said that to somebody just recently. I said, family is the foundation of any type of success and should be the priority for any desire to succeed. And if you ever move away from that foundation, you start to wobble. So it's almost better to choose family over everything. Yeah, it is better to choose family over everything.
Yeah, they'll be with you when everybody else gone.
Yeah, exactly right. But I wanted to comment or ask you more about the education piece, because, I worry about the children and the education that they're experiencing in our public schools, but even private schools. Many private schools, at least on the East Coast, are closing. I don't know if that's the case in Texas, but yeah, and many of the church-sponsored schools are closing even faster than the private ones are, because there are some private schools that are not church-based. So I've been sort of thinking about Common Core, or SOL is what we call it in Virginia, and thinking about how can the church rethink Vacation Bible School, for example, and think about how can you do summer school. That's an integration of Vacation Bible School and some standards to help them through the summer slump. Yep. And can that be the new Christian gift to the community around education? What do you think about that?
First of all, I think it's a wonderful idea. Yeah. I think it's a fabulous idea. The only issue or pushback with the idea is that sometimes you don't have pastors who love education like that. To be able to put the kind of effort into something like that, that would bring that kind of idea to pass. And because that's a lot of work. Yeah. It's a lot of work and effort to be able to create an infrastructure, educational infrastructure, whereby young people who are not necessarily in their infrastructure throughout the course of the year, you only get them for the summer. Then who's going to teach them?
Right. Yeah. This is my question before you go into that too, because I'm thinking about it. As far as when you say that, it just sparks my mind even more. How important is it? The restroom situations where they want you to let, certain people in certain restrooms, and that kind of sparked me even more to, do I need to do a school? How important do you think it is? I know you were talking about how the schools are closing, but they masterfully have a charter school over at the Potter's House, so you got the best of both worlds. But how important is it for the church, not just for the summer, how important is it for the church to do private schools or do their own school to kind of shield our kids from some of the stuff that's going on. I just wonder what you think on that.
I think it'd be great to do, but like every idea needs to be funded. And the reason why most schools close is because of the funding. They just don't have the money to.
And see, that's why I kind of agree. I'm not a Republican, but at home in Georgia.
Put that out there, right?
No, because I'm saying it because where I'm going.
Now, me on the other hand, just kidding.
That's funny, but where I'm going is in Georgia we had the voucher system,
Right.
And so the vouchers was I built my whole school because athletics bring people. I had people coming from Africa, I had people coming from Canada, and we had the Georgia Gold scholarships to pay to help supplement some of those things because each child, I hate to say it, they got you worth a certain money. Special ed worth this much to the state. Gifted worth this much, regular ed worth this much. So that money follows that child wherever they go. But at home, where in Georgia, that voucher was able to be used for educating in the private school. And that's how I ended up growing the school a little faster because I was able to get those scholarships from kids who wanted to go to private school but didn't have the funds to do so. And so I know we don't have that in Virginia. Do you all have that in Dallas at all? The voucher system?
Yeah, we do have depending on what district and there's still some debates going on about you see the state of Texas. The TEA doesn't necessarily love and appreciate charter schools like that because it takes money away from public schools.
Right, it does, exactly.
But families are a little bit more adamant about, I want my kid to go where we want to go. And so, there's more of an embracing of the voucher system.
I'm going to ask you because he's smart.
Yeah.
Two, do you feel like, I'm going to ask both of y'all this, do you feel like it's really, if that money's supposed to go to that child and that child is not at that school, is it really taking money from them? I mean, because that child not there. What, how do you feel about that? Because if it's my money, I'm worth $5,000 and I go to Dr. Harris private school and don't go to Maxwell Public School, am I really taking money from Maxwell Public School if that's my child and that's the money that follows him? Because you're using that money to fund him. So
well, it's yes and no though, right? It's yes, it is because the public school needs to be supported as well. And when you start taking students away, then the infrastructure of the public schools start to be challenged. Right. So you want to sustain that because the state has also got to fund the public schools. Right. But then it's no, because if it really is for the child, then it shouldn't matter. Well, it ain't necessarily only for the child. It's also for the infrastructure of the state.
Well, I think what we're talking about is limited resources. Yeah. Limited resources is the reason why, this is such a grave debate. But on the other end, the parent has the right to be able to send their child to wherever they want to go. My son just did his senior speech today, and he mentioned that in the speech. I asked my father many times, I've been at this school for 7 years. I asked my father many times, can I go back to a public school? And he told me no.
Wow.
He said it? Yeah, he said it in his speech. He told me no. Then he said, I'm glad he said no because, I met some cool people here, relationships and brotherhood, blah, blah, blah. I was like, there you go. Let the parents be parents. Let the parents be parents. But it's to your point, Dr. Antipas, it's both and, right? But that's us as parents. Now,
yeah.
You gotta also see that those who are running the system has got to be able to take money and be able to help out every school, every public school that's in the state. And it's not like money is dripping into the system. There is money that is always being bled out, and so they need more money. And every system or every ISD here in the state of Texas, at least, does not get the kind of funding that is needed and necessary in order for their school and their district to be top notch. So yes, if I take one from here it's going to mess up my funds. Now, here is where it gets very intricate and I think very smart. If you have the right superintendent, they'll be able to govern all of that. So, such as not to put the schools, kind of school, is a charter school, is a private, is a public, at odds with each other, but to be able to bring them all together so that the whole district is well served. And now, as a family, I can take my kid to wherever I want to take them, and I can keep the money in the district, and cause for there to be some communication across. Grand Prairie did that here in the state of Texas. Grand Prairie, the superintendent of Grand Prairie did that well, where it looked on paper like the district was not losing money just because they allowed for a charter school to be in their district, and everybody's been making money. Right. In fact, one of the things that she did was she took a portion of the public school building, and allowed for the charter school to operate. So you still get the butts in seat fund money,
rent.
right? Because they're still coming into your building. But then you get some extra because they got to pay you rent.
Now that's smart.
That's a good smart move. That's a smart
And that's
move.
how they ended up doing it at New Birth. So when you gave us, you helped me.
It's the cheat code.
I appreciate you. So at New Birth, they realized they couldn't transform
That's right.
the private school into a charter school. So they ended up having the private school on one side and the charter school, on the other side. Right. So the charter school was actually paying rent, which kind of helped us as far as, offset costs that we had at the private school that some of the people that couldn't have paid. So that's amazing you say that, because that's exactly what they did over at
revenue generating property.
I ain't think about that with the public school though. I ain't think, man, that's just genius.
It was brilliant. And Grand Prairie is probably one of the most successful and prominent ISDs, in the state of Texas, because she did that.
Just made everybody your friend. You put it together, organized.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Speaking of education, I know that's pretty smart. Business move. And that's what we need, leadership, right? We need leadership that is in the best interest of the kids.
Yes.
Not in the best interest of the superintendent or the staff.
You said it right there.
It's got to be in the best interest of the kids. Because here's what I want to shift a little bit and talk about. And I hope I say this the right way. Correct me if I don't say it the right way. But what I'm seeing the future, historically, blacks in general have suffered in this country. And then and Jim Crow never ended, by the way. I like to always emphasize that. There was no end date to Jim Crow. That's why when Ahmaud Arbery was killed in Georgia by the vigilantes, there was no hate crime to convict them of. How did John Lewis come up from Georgia and all of these great heroes come up from Georgia and we don't have, that's the capital of KKK. How did we not have a racial hate crime on the books? Because we never in this country paused and lamented the sins of the past. We just changed a few laws and kept moving. Right. So be it as it may, we've had some civil rights movements, and we have a civil rights movement and several different smaller ones. Even Black Lives Matter is that's the civil rights movement. We've had women's rights movement, and we've got some progress in this country. And now we have some amazing progress with women. Women are entrepreneurs, and they still got some way to go. But I see wind under their wings, and they're really. I'm very optimistic about the future, though we're not there yet. But looking way down the road, what I see as a liability to our society is black and brown men. And I'm seeing it now. In many cases, they don't feel that they can do anything right. Can't talk right, can't walk right. They saw old man in the background being the problem in society that has prohibited women, for example. they can't relate to that man who prohibited women because they were raised by women and they never had the manhood that they need. So they get what it means to be a man from rap songs and sometimes they don't know, so they just turn within and don't say anything and sit in the back. So the future is going to be, I think, where we're going to have less and less black men groomed for leadership, less and less black men that seem to even need to be fought for, because it's like fighting for a man. I mean, why would you fight for a man in society? Men have been the problem. But this is a different breed, Gen Z, Generation Alpha, millennials. They don't know what it's like to be a man. What does it mean to be a man in society? And I worry about that. And I worry as if I got children, and I don't. And maybe it's because someday I have them, and by the time they get old enough to be a man, I'll be dead. So worry now.
Ooh. That was very dark.
Yeah, well, if I told you how old I am.
You ain't even 50 years old yet.
Well, I wasn't worried about the ones that I have in the future.
Right.
Anyway, but the point is,
close the deal.
But
right. Seal the deal.
Close the deal, man.
Seal
What's
the deal.
up? Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
Secure the bag.
Yeah, close one of them deals.
Big one.
Go ahead, bro. My fault. It took me back to one of the other podcasts.
Oh, man. That's funny.
Man.
Can you react to that? Do you share that? Do you see what I'm saying? Am I off?
Dude.
I do see what you're saying.
You about to take us down a crazy road in a minute, though, after you say something. You done opened the bag of worms, really.
Right. I do see what you're saying. But there's a part of me that doesn't share the same level of anguish and passion. And I think every generation in its time has its own issues. Some of those issues are caused by the stability or instability of family and then propagated by the consumerism mentality of culture. But, everybody has its own challenges. I think to a certain degree there is, your younger generation, Gen Zs or Gen Alphas, who are looking for male role models to be able to help to define manhood and masculinity. I think we're at the age now in which we can actually start talking about toxic masculinity and how it has played a part into maybe suppressing some of the liberties and some of the prowess of women in our community. But I think just having those kinds of conversations has the ability to be able to bring healing to places and spaces where there were not. They are more vocal in places and spaces where previous generations were not.
Now, you mentioned toxic masculinity. I have a lot of questions. What's not toxic masculinity? And is that an anachronistic statement? Is that speaking about the men of boomers and Gen X's that possess that sort of oppressive, toxic masculinity to which people are referring, and we're bringing that into a generation that doesn't have that as a point of reference? So what they hear, all masculinity that I hear often is toxic masculinity. So what is not toxic masculinity? And what does it mean to be masculine? I'm speaking for a Gen Z and a millennial and an alpha, because everything about manhood is really codified as negative. Patriarchy is bad. Masculinity is toxic. So then what is the right thing?
Well, I mean, that's the point of having conversation.
Yeah.
Because, patriarchy being bad, well, it depends on how's your theological understanding of what that means. There there's a patristic faith that is a part of our faith tradition. And that's not necessarily toxic, and it's not bad when the power is wielded right, with wisdom. But then there is another part that happens in our particular cultures that sometimes has been exacerbated by the issues and the trauma of slavery that has caused for men to have to bear the brunt of trauma. And so our expression of masculinity has been sometimes abrasive without having adequate conversations as to the reason why these behaviors exist. To my point previously, we are in a state in which if a young man asks that question, then we can give adequate answers. For instance, one of the things that's very important, and as it pertains to generations, I was having a conversation with my sons, and I told them, I said, you know what, first of all, let me apologize for not being as communicative as I should have been when we transitioned to Dallas. I said, your dad was in his 30s. My hand was on the plow. My head was down. And I was trying to make sure we good. So I assumed that you would be good because at the time I was parenting the way that I was parented.
Reverend.
And I was a latchkey kid, which means you good. Here's the key. Do life. You know what I'm saying? Right. Navigate the concrete jungles of Chicago, navigate the guns and the drugs and all this, navigate all that and be at home by the time the street lights go off and come on and make sure you're good and handle your business at school. And if everything is okay, we ain't got a problem. Wow. But if somebody called me, we got a problem. Wow. Right? So I was assumed to be okay. And that's the way I parented, and I did not have viable conversations. My oldest boy really felt it the most. I have an oldest boy, he's 28 years old. He was 14 when we moved. He was just transitioning to high school. But he went to a private Christian school. We were in Las Vegas, and that was his community of friends. And then I was pastoring a church. We planted a church, and that was his other community. So both communities were based off of people, you know, that love you, talk to you, and all that stuff. Had great conversation. We get here, that's stripped away, and now you're going to a public school. So now you get talked about, even if your dress is tight. You know, if your shoes are tight, your pants are tight, you know, your jeans are tight, you get talked about regardless because that's what they call Joan, and they talk about each other. That's a part of it, right? But if you don't have the sensibility and the awareness to understand that that's not rejection, that is another way of, a rites of passage of acceptance. Right. Then you're in survival mode.
Yeah, because most of the time people don't joke with people they don't like.
Right, exactly.
A lot of people don't get that. You know
exactly.
What I'm saying? Like, if I don't like you, I ain't joking with you at all.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And that was that was me in Chicago.
Exactly.
But that wasn't him in Vegas. Right. And so it meant that we had to.
Yeah. So when I mess with you, man, I'm just.
Right. We just. you gotta let Antipas know. You know? Don't be so sensitive. Don't be so sensitive.
We just joking, man. They don't really like you, man.
Right. Go ahead. Right. When I'm looking at David, I'm looking at the other part of masculinity that is fundamentally flawed, but that's part of all humanity, right? And in his context, in David's context, where let's just say his mom Nitzavit, who is having struggle with Jesse anyway in their relationship, and not knowing and understanding that Jesse wants to put her away, and he wants to put her away because he wants to be a priest, and which means that you need to be married to somebody who's a full-fledged Hebrew, and she may not be full-fledged Hebrew, so he is trying to have a baby through her maidservant, in which the maidservant tells Nitzavit, and Nitzavit says, well, fine then, I will go in and I'll sleep with my own husband, but he didn't know that that was his wife. And so now she's pregnant, even though she was put away. And now Jesse is looking at a woman that he put away. Like, how did you get pregnant? Which means that he never perceived David to be his real son. And that's the reason why when Samuel comes along and says, "Where all your sons," David is not invited to the party because he never perceived. So now David is already dealing with a level of rejection. So now that level of rejection now impacts the kind of masculinity that I have, right? Because the only thing that people applaud in our manhood is the thing that we do more of.